Welcome my dear students, I am your course instructor Navya Nihal, guest faculty in ITM University Gwalior. Today I am going to prepare a video lecture for BSc Agriculture 3rd year 5th semester student. Course code is Biochem BT311 and course title is Principles of Food Science and Nutrition. So this is the second topic of unit 3rd, in which I am going to discuss about the different factors that can affect on the growth of the microorganisms in food. So these are the basic outlines on which I am going to discuss in this video lecture. So before moving towards the different factors that can affect on the growth of the microorganisms, I would like to give some intro about the microorganisms. So there are some microorganisms that can when the microorganisms are grow in the food, they can cause some changes in the food characteristics. Sometimes it is desirable changes and sometimes it is undesirable changes. So what's the meaning of desirable changes? It means that like the fermentation process that occurs because of the microorganisms are come under the desirable changes, because we get something good products from the microorganisms. And the undesirable factors, undesirable means that like the food spoilage, food poisoning, it means the good food products are affected. The growth of microorganisms can affect the flavor, texture, color of the food product. So these are the some undesirable changes that generally we don't want. So basically these two are the different factors that can affect the growth of microorganisms. First one is the intrinsic factor and second is the extrinsic factor. So what's the meaning of the intrinsic? Intrinsic means inside. It means that the factors that are related to the food itself. So we all know that to make a food, pH value, water content, nutrient content and redox potential, these are some basic necessity for the food. Plus there is a presence of antimicrobial substances and the mechanical barriers to the microbial invasion, such as the skin of the fruits and the vegetables or the shell of the nuts. These all act as a antimicrobial substances that deteriorate the growth of the microorganisms. So extrinsic factors means external factors that we like the factors that are present in the environment and can affect the food. So temperature is the external or the extrinsic factors, and the composition of the gases and the relative humidity in the atmosphere means the humidity that is present in the atmosphere and the different compositions that are naturally present in the environment comes under the category of the extrinsic factor. So in detail I am going to discuss about the water activity. Water activity is also expressed in this short way, A, and in the subscript is W. So as we all know that water is one of the most essential nutrients and it also helps in the growth of the microorganisms, like I have mentioned here. It also required for the chemical reaction in the cells, for the transport of nutrients and for the flush out of the waste products into and out of the cells. The water activity of food is described as water that is required for the growth of microorganisms in food. Suppose if we are adding some solutes, then it leads to the decrease in the water activity. Why? Because solutes bind with the water molecules. So the water content that are freely available in the food products are bounded with the solutes such as the NaCl or the sugar. It means that the sucrose. Generally, it has been reported that if we are adding some sodium chloride, then sodium chloride has more efficiency in compared to the sucrose. It means that NaCl can more effectively reduce the water activity. So in generally, if I am talking about the microorganisms, so generally the bacteria needs high water activity in compared to the other two, that is the mold and the yeast. And these are the some factors such as the xerophiles, halophiles and the osmophiles, in which microorganisms can grow at a very low water activity, that is the 0.60 to the 0.75. Next is the pH value. I have already taught you about the pH in unit 1. As I have already said that the taste, the flavor of butter are depend on the value of pH, and in that unit I have said that as the acidic environment of food products as the directly affect the growth of the microorganisms, so highly acidic environment will reduce the growth of the microorganisms. Generally the microorganisms can grow at pH 1 to 11, and yeast molds can grow better in the acidic food than the bacteria. So this is the reason when the lactic acid bacteria can grow in the milk, they will consume the lactose and produce the lactic acid. So the pH of the milk will lowers down, and we can also generally see that if we put the curd outside the fridge in a normal temperature, then you can observe that day by day, or you can observe in every 8 hours or 10 hours, the taste of the curd will slightly become sour, slightly become acidic. So generally the bacteria can grow at 4.5, 6.5 to 7.5 and generally 9.0 pH. For yeast 1.5 to 3.5 and 4.5 to 6.5 and 8.2 to 8.9 pH are these are the general pH at which the different bacteria can grow, different yeast can grow and different molds can grow. So the pH of yeast and molds are about same, but the molds can also grow at pH maximum pH, that is the 11. Suppose that these are the basically 4 groups on the basis of different acidic food. So the acidic nature in the group 1, that is the low acid food, and pH of low acid food is more than 5.3. The food products, that is the corn, meat, fish and milk, and generally all type of microorganisms can grow at this pH, especially the bacteria can affect in all these food products. In the same way, group 2, that is the medium acid foods, and the pH of medium acid food is 5.3 to 4.5, and these are the different products such as the banana, yogurt and pumpkins that contain pH around 5.3 to 4.5. So in these food products around all type of microorganisms can grow and spoil them. In group 3, this is the acid food, and the pH is 4.5 to 3.7. Tomato, orange juice, sugar beet and the grapes, these all contain acid food, and generally we can observe that yeast and molds can grow and spoil these kind of food products. In the group 4, high acid food, and it means that the high acidic nature, that is the below 3.7, apples, grapefruit juice and lime. Yeast and molds are generally grow and spoil these kind of foods. In the same way, when the pseudomonas can affect the meat, and the reason is that the pseudomonas can consume all the proteins that is present in the meat and produce the ammonia, so the pH of the meat will increase. Apart from all of these, there are some weak organic acids such as the benzoic, sorbic acid and the propionic acid that are added to preserve the food. These are the nutrient contents. Microorganisms need nutrients for their growth and the maintenance, and generally the microorganisms use simple sugars which is present in the foods such as the glucose, fructose, sucrose and maltose as source of energy and the carbon. And there are some extracellular enzymes such as the amylase, lipase and proteases that can utilize the complex polysaccharides such as the starch and the cellulose. Apart from this, the macromolecules are enzymatically break down into the simple form so that the nutrients can pass through the cell membrane into the cytoplasm. Generally the simple compound means the simple molecules are digested by the can cross the cell wall or cell membrane of the microorganisms, such as the simple molecules such as the sugar and the amino acid, and all the complex molecules such as starch, these all are going to break down into the simple one and into the simpler form, and after that it will cross the cell membrane. So the milk contains sufficient nutrients, as we all know that, except almost all type of microorganisms can grow in the milk. But in the case of meat are rich in protein, lipid and minerals and vitamins, but they are not rich in carbohydrates. And the food that are taken out from the plant are generally rich in the carbohydrate, but they are poor in protein, minerals and the vitamins. Antimicrobial substances and mechanical barriers. It means that there are some barriers that can protect the food products from the damage, from the spoilage, and antimicrobial substances means some biologically structure that can also deteriorate the growth of the microorganisms. So in this, the foods contain many natural antimicrobial substances, while the others are added to the food or are formed in it during processing. There are some physical barriers such as the skin of the fruit, as we all know that it can protect to enter the microorganisms inside the food. Shell of nuts contain a low amount of water, so the growth of microorganisms are inhibited. Cuticle membrane of egg, these all are the physical barriers that will prevent the microbial growth in the food products. So these are some substances that can inhibit or delay the microbial growth in the food. There are some antimicrobials that are naturally present in the food, and there are some antimicrobials that we have to add into the food to prevent our food from the spoilage. So these are natural antimicrobial substances such as the phenols, alkaloids, pigments. These all are the secondary metabolites, phenols and alkaloids. And pigments, resins, they all are act as an antimicrobial activity. Apart from this, some flavoring components of herbs and spices and all the volatile essential oils, all of them contain the antimicrobial compound. In garlic, generally allicin are present to prevent the spoilage. In the same way, spices, eugenol are present, and in thyme and oregano, thymol are present. Cinnamic aldehyde are present in the cinnamon and the cassia. These all are the organic compounds that prevent spices and the flavoring components, herbs, etc. So apart from this, some scientist has researched, and they have isolated some phenolic compounds from the pomegranate fruit peels, which also showed high inhibitory effects against the leuconostoc monocytogenes, Staphylococcus aureus and Escherichia coli, and Yersinia enterocolitica. So these are the natural that is already present. Apart from this, there are some added to foods that we are adding, some organic and some inorganic chemicals we added to prevent our food or to preserve our food. So the propionic acid and the propionates are generally used to preserve bread, cake, jam, jellies, and some cheese products against the molds and the bacteria. So remember these compound name, try to remember them. Next is the redox potential. What is the redox potential? Generally, redox potential are represented as the EH. When the electrons are moved from the donor compound to the acceptor, so the potential difference can generated between these two compounds. It means that one compound will donate their electrons and the other one will accept their electrons. So these two compounds will generate some kind of potential, and these potential are called as the redox potential of these two compound. Redox means oxidation and reduction. As the name, if we break, red means reduction and OX means oxidation. So in this, there are some substances, suppose there are some substances that will lose their electrons and become oxidized. Remember that the substance that lose their electrons are called as the oxidized, and the substance that gain electron are called as the reduced, becomes reduced. So the donator of electrons are said as the good reducing agent, while the acceptor of electrons are the good oxidizing agent. Generally, the redox potential are expressed in the millivolts, and it can be measured by using some special electrodes. These are the reducing agents, such as the reducing sugars, enzymes such as catalase, superoxide dismutase, peroxidase, thiols, mercaptans, ascorbic acid, and the polyphenols, tannins and lignins, flavonoids. Next is the extrinsic factors, and the first point is the temperature. As we all know that microorganisms can grow at below 0 to about above 100 degree temperature, and for that I have already used several terms in the previous class, several different classes in the previous class. So these are the classes. Before moving towards the classes, there are three terms generally come under the temperature, pH or any other factors, that is the minimum, optimum and maximum. So according to their production we can use these terms. Minimum temperature means the temperature at which microorganisms can be grow, and but the production or the yield are not that much gained from that particular microorganisms. ऑप्टिमम टेम्परेचर मीन्स या फिर और ऑप्टिमम फैक्टर्स या ऑप्टिमम टेम्परेचर, ऑप्टिमम पीएच मीन्स दैट द माइक्रो ऑर्गेनिजम्स कैन ग्रो एंड इट विल गिव द सफिशिएंट आउटपुट. इट मीन्स द सफिशिएंट प्रोडक्शन, sufficient produce any substance or any enzymes, and the maximum means that the particular microorganisms can tolerate that temperature also. It means that there is a chance to grow at that particular temperature, so that is the maximum temperature. So first one is the psychrophilic, or we can also use at the psychrophiles. Generally the optimum temperature for growth of microorganisms, of psychrophilic microorganisms, is around 15 degrees Celsius or lower, and the maximum temperature is around below 20 degree Celsius. But the minimum temperature for growth in the of the psychrophilic microorganisms are around 0 degree or lower than that. So these are the microorganisms that can grow, come under the category of psychrophiles. Vibrio, Aeromonas, alkali genes, Pseudomonas and the Flavobacterium. These all microorganisms can spoil the frozen foods. Next is the psychrotrophs. Psychrotrophs, generally organisms can grow at 0 degree C, it means 0 degree temperature, but their optimum range of temperature is around 20 to 40 degree Celsius, and the maximum is around 43 degree Celsius. And these are some microorganisms that can grow and that can spoil the date fruits. The mesophilic, in this the microorganisms have adapted themselves to live in the bodies of human also and the warm-blooded animals. Plus these type of microorganisms can grow, can generally found in the soils and waters in the tropic and the temperate climates. So the optimum growth temperature of mesophils is around 30 to 40 degree Celsius, and the minimum temperature is around 10 degree and maximum is around 45 degree Celsius. So lactobacillus, bacillus and Escherichia coli, these are some food spoiler bacteria. Next is the thermophilic bacteria. The thermophilic organisms, as the name said, high temperature microorganisms need high temperature for growth, and the optimum growth temperature is around 45 to 65 degrees C, and the minimum temperature is around 35 to 45 degrees C, and the maximum is around 60 to 90 degrees C. So these are Clostridium and Bacillus, and these can spoil the low acid canned foods. Next is the atmosphere of the food. So the external environment, external atmospheric nature of food. So in this, the first discuss about the effect of oxygen. As I have already taught you that the oxygen is necessary for the aerobic microorganisms, for the growth of aerobic microorganisms, for energy generation, because it is oxygen is an powerful oxidant, and it act as an excellent electron acceptor for the respiration. But in the same manner, if oxygen is present in the anaerobic microorganisms, in the anaerobes, so the oxygen may lead to death of organisms, because the oxygen will automatically diffuse inside the cell, whether the microorganisms needed oxygen for respiration or not. So in generally, the oxygen are present in their normal ground state, that is the lowest energy state, means the triplet oxygen. But in the anaerobic condition, or in some special condition, the oxygen will present in the form of singlet oxygen, or in the superoxide anions, or the H2O2, it means the hydrogen peroxide and hydroxyl radical ion. So in that case, their oxygen will gain electron from the various reducing agents in the cell to form themselves higher energy forms of superoxide or the hydrogen peroxide. And these forms of oxygen can react with the cell components of microorganisms, such as the membrane, and destroy them, that lead them to the cell death. Next is the effect of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide has inhibitory effect to certain microorganisms. If its concentration in the growth medium exceeds a certain level, then it will inhibit the mechanism of the microorganisms. It may also affect the permeability of the cell membrane in the spores of the Clostridium sporogens. Next is the effect of relative humidity. Humidity means the water molecules that is present in the environment. So the microorganisms can take that water molecules and can spoil the food. So it may affect their quality. So it may affect the quality of the food. That's the reason sometime if the packaged foods are not properly wrapped, then the flavor and the quality of that food product are spoiled, or the taste are changed. In the same way, if the beef cut beef are wrapped improperly, then it will undergo in the spoilage in the surface inside the refrigerator. Why? Just because of the relative humidity. So these are the basic concepts of the different factors, intrinsic and the extrinsic factors. And this is the exercise in which I want that you make short notes on heat treatment method, especially the pasteurization. This is the learning outcomes in which I hope that students will understand the factors that can affect the microorganisms in our food, and why the different factors are necessary for our food. So this is the reference. It is a paper from where I have taken the study material. Thank you.